Thank you for tuning in to Kingdom Radio, your go-to podcast for everything Kansas City Chiefs. Welcome to Kingdom Radio. I'm your host, Richard Smith, along with my senior NFL analyst and co-host, kris-chavez. And look, today we have a packed show. We really haven't been on here much lately. It's kind of Chris and I's time of the year to get a little break in, which is much needed, especially with that long season, which, hey, we really enjoyed it. But it's time to get back on the wagon here because as of right now, I think everybody knows the new league, the new NFL year is starting this week. And the collective bargaining agreement is, being proposed right now. We got the free agency getting ready to start here this week as well. There's really a lot of stuff going on. So we'd really like to talk about, brett-veach's vision and how when he started as a general manager, he made moves to put his position right now to keep a strong core, especially when we have to sign players like Patrick-Mahomes to possibly, the biggest contract any quarterback has ever seen. Although he has expressed interest on taking a team-friendly deal, which, we'll get into that at some point. But Chris, let's get right into this because where I'd like to start with you is with brett-veach's vision, because you had wrote an article which really kind of, fueled the fire for this podcast today. And, we just want to let Kansas City know where we're sitting because the cap space doesn't look great right now. We also put the franchise tag on Chris Jones. We can't really talk numbers, but let's talk about brett-veach's vision and why Kansas City shouldn't be worried about our cap situation. So kind of take off on that, Chris.
So brett-veach, way back when he signed Sammy Watkins and Anthony Hitchens, those are two of his biggest signings when he first came on as the general manager. He invested a lot of money in these guys, but not a whole lot of time. Reason being that he knew that he was going to have to pay Patrick Mahomes because he was going to be the franchise quarterback. He was that confident in him. And so both of those contracts that he signed with Sammy Watkins and Hitchens were set to expire by the time that Patrick Mahomes became a free agent at the end of his fifth year. And which was fantastic planning on his part. Where we're kind of getting into a little bit of a hiccup, as you've kind of brought up, is with Chris Jones, who has outplayed his expected value and is currently commanding more money than we had budgeted into the salary cap.
Correct. Now let's touch base on this a little bit while we're here. We have 20 free agents. Most of them are unrestricted free agents, and there's a lot of cap space that can be cleared up. And I want to point this out there before we get into this any deeper is we're not going to get into numbers. It's not fair to do that right now. Even with us knowing what Chris Jones' franchise tag is going to cost us, we don't have any idea where our salary cap is going to be. It's too early to calculate that, and it really just doesn't make sense. So, staying out of numbers, Chris, we have 20 unrestricted free agents. I see the Chiefs letting a handful of those players walk, which will clear up a lot of cap space. What do you think about that scenario, with players like Terrell Suggs and LaShawn McCoy and Chad Henne? That's $11, $12 million right there freed up. How much, where are we sitting? What kind of cushion are we sitting on? And I know we're not getting the numbers, but should we be nervous about this upcoming season?
I wouldn't necessarily be nervous because we still have the core and then some players who are going to be coming back.
Correct.
And I think that where we're going to end up finding or rounding out our roster is going to be through the draft, which currently we have 5 draft picks, and we probably won't be very big players in free agency. Again, going on the expected salary cap numbers, again, we're not going to go there, but it should be kind of low. We're probably going to end up looking to spend the majority of our money in undrafted free agents, which is not necessarily a very bad thing to do this year because of the depth of the draft and talent. And we're going to be able to get 5th, 6th round talent, if we're lucky, possibly even a 4th round talent as an undrafted free agent this year.
Correct.
And again, going into the draft, if we draft well and we focus on drafting starters who are going to be replacing other starters that we're going to lose in free agency, and then we look at signing backups and depth players, we're going to do just fine. If we draft a depth player in the first 2 or even 3 rounds, we're going about the draft and building the roster in the wrong way.
And which, given Brett-Veach's track record, that's more than likely not going to happen. I don't see the Chiefs making any hiccups in the NFL draft any year. I mean, they have honed in on it so well. It's a system now. They're not really building a team or keeping a team. And so I think that makes the process a little bit easier, for our front office to navigate and maneuver all these scenarios, because there's a lot going out and there's going to be a lot coming in. But we have, the Chiefs and the organization have proven over the last few years that that's not such a bad thing. And Chris, I don't know about you, but me personally, there's a point for me, and it wasn't always like this as a Chiefs fan. I want everybody to know this. My comfort level with our franchise has never been this high. So when we see players walk, at this point where we're at, I'm more excited to see who comes in rather than me being upset about who we let walk, because we have proven through the years with our success rate and the decisions that we've made that all those critical decisions have paid off. And so, how could we not have that type of, comfort level, with the direction of our depth chart?
If I could piggyback off of what you just said, because it kind of brings us back to last year around this time.
Mm-hmm.
We let franchise fan favorites walk.
Yes.
We let Houston go. We let Barry go.
Yes.
We let Tamba Hali go.
Correct.
And these were mainstay guys that the fan base had circled around and been built upon for the last several years.
Correct.
And a lot of people were talking about how dare we let these guys go. But what ended up happening? We brought in the right guys to replace them and actually got better.
Correct.
And ultimately it paid off with the Super Bowl win.
And
it's
right.
a hard way of looking at it like that, because we have nothing but love for those players.
Correct.
But it's a business, and we have to get better, and that's exactly what Brett-Veach did last year.
And that was the thing, is I think that Chiefs Kingdom viewed that scenario is we already have the best, but we didn't, and I think that we were blinded by our love and our emotion for those players, than actually looking at the scenario as a whole and saying, hey, look, yeah, we have some great players, but we've got a terrible defense. And so, no matter how much of a staple they are in the paper of the Kansas City Chiefs organization, at some point, you've got to look the other way and say, hey, what are our options here? Let's weigh our options out. Let's look at the future. And let's make some hardcore decisions right now, to benefit the direction of our vision. And I think that it's been a lot of fun to watch, and that's why I really trust this. I mean, it was really hard for me to watch Derek Johnson go and all those players, and especially Eric Berry. But look where we're at now. I don't think anybody would look back on that scenario and say we made, the Chiefs, Brett-Veach, or anyone in that organization made a wrong decision.
Yeah, they would be very hard-pressed to try to justify their stance, thinking that we made the wrong decision.
Yes, and so, okay, let's talk about decisions here, because we've had some trending players here on the free agency list to watch, and you mentioned one that popped open, just yesterday. It might have been the day before, I'm not really sure. There's been a lot going on in the sports world with the coronavirus. But Xavier Rhodes, cornerback from Minnesota, that was one that really struck your interest. Is he in our ballpark? Is this something that we could really take a look at? Because we're also eyeing Chris Harris Jr., free agent from the Broncos, and he's expressed a lot of interest in coming to Kansas City. So are either of these players even a possibility for the Chiefs to pick up, or do you look for us to bring back our two corners from last season?
I think that our chances of getting Xavier Williams are really going to depend on where he values himself. If he's honest with himself, his value is pretty low right now. Mm-hmm. And he's probably going to be looking for an astronomical number that, honestly, if we were pressed between his price or Breeland's price, we'd probably get Breeland cheaper. Breeland's expecting to get a huge payday, given that he was coming off of a one-and-done, a prove-it contract, and he proved it. Xavier Williams, the only way that we're going to really get him is if he comes to us on a one-and-done contract.
Xavier Rhodes.
I'm sorry.
You're right.
Xavier Rhodes comes to us on a prove-it contract.
Well, here's the thing about that, and let's keep it real with that scenario, Chris. Is we just got done with that. I don't see the Chiefs doing doing a one and done, a two and done, and then going back to a one and done. You know what I mean? I mean, if we got to a position where Xavier Rhodes was still available after the draft, after we see what kind of talent that we have on the table, then possibly we could look at putting him on the roster. But I think as it stands right now, that would just be a bad move for our cap space and the future of our defense, because in a way we are on a win a Super Bowl now type of mode. I think it's going to be in that mode for the next decade, but I don't think that we're desperate enough to go out there and overpay for a player that we could probably get Chris Harris Jr. We could get Chris Harris Jr. cheaper and probably have the same production.
Yeah, well, and this is also kind of tie in with draft strategy. Are we looking to draft two cornerbacks with as deep as the cornerback position is in the draft this year? I think we have to look at going that route and spending two picks on cornerbacks this year.
I say we take one early. If we don't take it in first round, we'll take one in second, and then possibly look at the undrafted free agents. Because if you look at this scenario, say we get our guy in the first round for our cornerback position. Then we bring a guy like Chris Harris Jr. in for 2 years. Somebody who can really teach this guy, and then we also have a leader in Honey Badger, and Thornhill is going to continue to learn. But we bring one guy in, then we bring a veteran presence in on the other side, somebody who can really teach him, and then possibly have a developmental player with a lot of promise from an undrafted free agent. Or do you think that would be a way to go as well?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really, like I was saying, it's really going to come down to the strategy that we're going with. But I think that we could potentially find two major contributors at cornerback in the draft and or in undrafted free agency. And I think we're going to end up waiting to sign a cornerback until potentially after the draft
Right.
Just to kind of see where all the pieces fall. If we jump early and sign Chris Harris, which I wouldn't necessarily be against, I think he would definitely be cheaper, and in a way, it's more of a homecoming for him.
Right.
I think that we have a lot of things working in our favor to bring him in.
Yes. He wants to be there.
Exactly. He wants to be there. He'll probably be willing to come in a little bit cheaper.
Exactly.
Not to mention to also get to have a chance to get a Super Bowl ring.
Right.
A very strong chance. If we jump on drafting him or signing him early, I think that changes our draft strategy, and we won't necessarily go after two cornerbacks. We'll probably still get an undrafted free agent, but we'll draft a cornerback for sure in this draft.
And, it really only makes sense because of how deep the draft pool is. I know that we're focused on, the Chiefs are focused on the linebacker position. But hey, if the Chiefs guy doesn't fall to them in the first round in linebacker, and we don't move up and we don't move back, I think it's a solid choice to go with a cornerback in the first round. And that's kind of a touchy thing too, Chris. Where are we standing right here with the linebacker situation? Because that is the biggest need. Obviously, cornerback is a huge need too. What are we looking at here? I want to hear your opinion.
Okay, so we're going to be losing one starter at linebacker. Reggie Ragland is basically out the door. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. He was one of the top performers at linebacker against the run last year.
Correct.
In the NFL. But we need to get better at linebacker across the board.
Right.
And we still have two guys on contract or under contract, and both of them are starters. And then we also have Ben Neiman, who is still under contract. So we have some depth there. But Neiman by no means should ever be a starter for us, unless it's due to injury. We need to draft a starter at linebacker.
Where are we at with Hitchens? Are we on our option year with him?
No, we still have him, I believe, for 2 more years. Okay,
so we're locked in with Hitchens. We can't really do anything with that. Yeah, it's a must, Chris. It's a must. Unfortunately, this is a year where the draft pool is extremely tight on talent at linebacker. Now, the positive note about that is the guys who are on that list, they're some studs. I mean, we're talking about some really, really high-profile impact players, and if we can land one of those in the first round, that's what I'm talking about. Because, Chris, I mean, it's not a deep pool, but who's in that pool? If we can nab one of them, the Chiefs will be looking great.
Yeah, there's some, I'm going to call them freak athletes at linebacker in the very top end of the linebacking pool. And after you get out of that top tier at linebacker, there's a pretty steep drop. And especially because we're looking for a starter, I want to get one of those top tier linebackers.
Right.
Somebody who can be a Derek Johnson for us at linebacker for the next 7, 10 years, 15 years.
Which would be great. Our anchor.
It would be great to get that guy. But we also need somebody at cornerback as well. But I think that the talent is deep enough at corner that we can probably still find our starter in the second round. Linebacking pool is so shallow that we have to get the guy in either the first round, or if we end up trading back a little bit, the very top half of the second round. With our first pick, I think we have to go with linebacker.
And I couldn't agree more. And I don't think that we'll even have the opportunity to move back into the second round, because let's be honest, with the pool as small as it is, say we move back 3 or 4 spots to take the top of the second round, and possibly have another second round pick. Heck, he might be gone in those 4 or 5 picks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would feel more confident if, when we're on the clock at 32, if there are 2 those top-tier linebackers still available, and assuming that they are the quote-unquote right fit for the Chiefs, then I'd feel more comfortable trading back a couple spots. But again, it's all scenario, and
it is.
We're sitting pretty where we're at. I know that looking at the roster and where we're sitting right now, it's scary, but we have talent that will overcome holes on the roster.
Correct. And look, and all we're doing, Kansas City, is going over the best possible scenario for the holes that we have in our roster. And we have a core. So the thing about that is, when you have that core, you're just putting complementary pieces in. But with brett-veach's track record, I mean, we obviously are thinking high-end talent, because that's exactly what we have on our roster. So, sorry, I kind of got lost track of thought here. Where were we at, Chris? Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought.
So we're still talking linebackers, but just the depth that we have on our roster is tremendous, and Veach has been very good about finding that depth, and we just need to trust the process. And this year's, we can't necessarily go shopping with a blank check and get whoever we want.
Right.
This year we have a budget we have to kind of maintain.
Correct.
Because also looking down the road, there's some big bills we have to pay.
Absolutely. I think this season is going to be the start of this. This is where brett-veach is going to earn his money, and this is where I'm going to say, okay, brett-veach needs a huge contract. Is if you can get through these hurdles of our salary cap issues in the next 2 seasons, I'm lock-in sold on brett-veach, because this isn't an easy task that he's working with here. I mean, we're really, really in a position where we're making some changes. But I trust him, and I think it's all going to turn out. I think we're going to improve as a team. It's not going to be a setback. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch again.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's going to further strengthen the confidence that we already have in him. Mm-hmm. And for all of our listeners who have listened for the last year or so, they know how strongly we are in brett-veach's corner.
Absolutely. I mean, like I've said earlier in this podcast, and me and you have definitely noted, throughout our career podcasting, is yes. I mean, brett-veach is, I would say, one of the top 3 general managers in the league, and for him to be as young as he is and doing what he is at an early age, brett-veach could go down as the best general manager of any team ever. So, as long as he keeps up this vision, I think the Chiefs are going to be in great shape, especially with Andy Reid at the helm. I mean, Andy Reid just is exploiting the talent of every player on his team. Spags is the same way. I love the personalities that we have on the offensive and defensive side of the ball as far as our coaching staff is concerned. I do want to bring up something, and the name is eluding me right now, but the Kansas City Chiefs brought in the assistant coach from the University of Missouri, and put him on their coaching staff. And I'm really excited about that because, Chris, what we had noted before, about the situation with Drew Lock and him being, in Kansas City, his whole, high school career. He grew up in Kansas City. He was, a diehard Chiefs fan his whole life. So for Andy Reid to have, that type of vision and that type of film on Drew Lock is, you can't get any better than that, especially with him going to the University of Missouri and Andy Reid, having his position, I believe is the offensive line coach from like 89 to 91 or 92, but still very highly respected there. So then we pull in, a coach that worked closely with him, with Drew Lock at the University of Missouri. I think all the way around, the Chiefs just are going to have Drew Lock's number because we're going to know way too much about the kid.
Yeah, well, and I also loved having his number this year in the snow, but we won't always be playing in the snow, and he'll eventually get a little bit more comfortable to playing in Arrowhead. But so to have any additional inside information on the kid that we don't already have is just going to be tremendous for us. And I look forward to us owning the Broncos for the remainder of Locke's career.
Yes, it's gonna be exciting to watch. And don't get me wrong, I think Drew Lock is going to be a good scenario for the Broncos. But I mean, you can't really deny the fact that, hey, this will be Andy Reid's 8th season as the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, all the way through high school, Reid has been, you know, for Drew Lock, I think he was like Shawnee Mission North or something, but, you know, his entire high school career, you know, Andy Reid was the coach of the Chiefs. Of course, Drew Lock has got a magnifying glass on him in Kansas City. I mean, that's just a fact. You know, and then you send him over to the University of Missouri, keep him in the same state. Andy Reid's still in Kansas City. You know, I mean, Andy Reid, that's just a short drive down I-70. And Andy Reid, you know, spent time coaching at the University of Missouri. It's just all the way around built up for the Chiefs to own Denver for the next 7 to 10. I'm great with it. So, Chris, we've touched base on a lot here. You know, we've already talked about the article that you've written about brett-veach's vision, which is really great because Kansas City really needs to realize, you know, the cap space is going to be freed up to be able to pay Patrick-Mahomes, and it's not really going to set us back as far as our roster is concerned. You know, I'm sure that'd be a huge concern for any fan. It's set up right for the dominoes to fall in the right direction. And Chris, also, let's touch base on this NFL collective bargaining agreement. It's still a little shaky right now, and there's a lot of decisions to be made. And I'm not really quite sure the players agree with some of the things that are going on. The salary cap could go up. We could have 2 franchise tags on one team. Chris, let's talk about the new CBA. What do we have going on, and what can we look for? Because they did just deny, you know, players and teams re-voting because they didn't agree with the bargaining agreement. So touch base on that, Chris. What do we got?
Well, first and foremost, the owners are looking to go to a 18-week, 17-game season. And in order to kind of drum up some more support for that, they're trying to look at expanding the active roster as well as the roster itself, and also increase the salary cap so that you can afford those additional players, as well as pay the players more.
Right.
And there's some other stuff under the surface that's going on, but the owners agreed upon it, and it was sent to the players. And the players' union, the player reps had to support it before they sent it out to all the players. The reps supported it, and so it went to the players. And the players are not all in agreement right now.
Right.
And I believe tomorrow is the final day for all of them to vote on it. Mm-hmm. And so we should, or I'm sorry, not tomorrow, Monday. And so we should know something Monday about whether they're going to go back to the drawing board or if there's going to be a new CBA in place for this year. And the other thing to just throw out there is that the owners and players aren't necessarily in any sort of rush to have to get this done. The current CBA runs through this next season. Right. And so if we're at this point next year, then we could potentially be looking at a lockout sort of deal.
Right.
But right now, we still have a year, but it's good business for them to be talking about it now.
Correct. And I think that with this new CBA coming up, I personally think it's going to be more smooth than when it was expiring the last time. So I feel like both sides are pretty close. There's just a few things that need to be hashed out. And like you said, it is a really great deal, you know, to really get this talk going and votes and stuff going a year before it expires. so they can hash out these details. And so, yeah, it's nothing to be alert about, but it could potentially open things up a little bit more for the Chiefs and having Patrick Mahomes. So I think if it was accepted, even though there's some things to tweak, I think it would benefit the Chiefs more than it would hurt them at this point.
Yeah, and kind of touch on something else that you brought up about the teams potentially having 2 franchise tags. I personally think that that's going to be a little bit more of a detriment to the agreement than something that the players are going to want to sign into place.
Right.
Just because ever since it became a thing in the last collective bargaining agreement, and the players themselves have really despised having that franchise tag on them.
Yes.
Just because it hinders them from getting that big paycheck that they're expecting to get. I think that there needs to be a little bit more retooling around that idea. There needs to be a couple changes to it. I don't necessarily have an end-all, be-all scenario as far as like something to suggest that would fix it.
Right.
But maybe something along the lines where like one player who is on the franchise tag, that salary doesn't count against the salary. I don't know. Something like that would be kind of interesting and intriguing. I think the teams and the owners would definitely agree to that. The players might be a little bit more agreeable to that. But I think that instead of getting, I think it's around like top 5 average pay, you go with like the top 3 at the position, as well as something that happened with the Baltimore Ravens. They franchise tagged Matt Judon as an edge or as an outside linebacker. If he had been tagged as a defensive end / edge rusher, he'd be making $3 million more.
Right.
And so getting tagged at a position that he only lined up at 9 times last year, or cost him $3 million, he's going to be really upset about that. The players should have some sort of say in that process as well.
But that's also in the same respect, that's the hustle of the depth chart. There has to be some leverage from within the organization to take advantage of some type of corner they can cut, and I know that it's a business, and I know that hurts the player, but at the same time, it's beneficial for the organization and the future and that season as a whole. So it's a give and take thing, and it's what side of the fence are you on? Which way are you looking at it, and how is it would you rather have it benefit your player or your team? And I guess that's where the line's drawn. Yeah,
and just a nice little segue there. That brings us to Chris Jones, and are we trying to benefit him and get him paid, or are we trying to keep the cohesion of the team and of the roster?
Right. I don't think it has anything to do with Chris Jones. I'm going to keep it very honest there. Chris Jones is, he is a piece of the puzzle, and he's just a piece. Now, is he a big face of the Chiefs? Yes, absolutely. But at the end of the day, he is one player on the 52-man roster. And if it benefits the team more, to franchise tag him, to cut him, whatever the case may be, that's kind of where you take your feelings out of it, for the individual and just look at a team aspect. And yeah, it hurts you a little bit. But in the same respect, hey, the team's got decisions to make, and I personally, no matter what decision we make, or the Chiefs make, I will back it because we see results,
Yeah, and like we said earlier in the show today, having to make those tough roster decisions, nobody likes making those decisions, because if we could, we'd keep every Chief player.
Right.
For the most part.
Right.
We love these guys, and especially because these guys brought us something most of us have never seen in our lifetime, a Super Bowl win.
Exactly.
But the business decisions have to be made. And as we saw last year, letting Houston go, Barry go, Holly go, a couple years back, Derek Johnson go, it hurts, but it's a business decision. We have to get better, whether it be due to talent or due to money. We have to get better in a monetary form. Mm-hmm. Or, we have to be willing to understand why the decision was made, and we can't let our emotions get involved.
No, and the bottom line, this is the bottom line to the entire scenario with Chris Jones, is Patrick-Mahomes is more important than Chris Jones, no matter which way you draw it up, no matter how you put it on the board, and that is our concern, and that is why Chris Jones is franchise tagged this season and possibly up for trade. Look, Chris Jones might not even be in a Chiefs uniform this season. We don't know. That's something we could possibly find out this coming week. It's going to be a busy week, and we're going to see a lot of changes here in the NFL. But Kansas City, just don't get too emotionally involved in any player on this roster, because you never know. Besides Mahomes, and the guys we got in contract, we got the big contract guys, but you got to understand, Mahomes is the guy. That's who we need. And if we if we have to get rid of Chris Jones to give him his money, bye, Chris. I hate to say it. You know what I mean, Chris? It's bye, Chris Jones, and good luck to you. I hope you go to the NFC, and it's nothing personal.
Yeah, and if that scenario were to happen, wish him nothing but the best, and hope to see him again in the Super Bowl.
Right, absolutely. I'd hate to see him go to the 49ers, but you never know. So, moving on, we've touched base on a lot of stuff, collective bargaining agreement, which kind of led us into Chris Jones and the, extra franchise tag. So we're going to end today with kind of talking a little bit about some of the higher profile players the Chiefs have interviewed in the combine process. And Chris, I have a page pulled up, but unfortunately I only have the secondary as far as, the players that we have formally and informally interviewed. So you're going to have to kind of help me out with the receivers and linebackers and some of the other studs that we have, because I just do not have them pulled up. So I'll just put it to you this way. Any player from LSU or Clemson that we have interviewed, we're spot on. Do you know what I mean, Chris? So let's Christian Fulton, a cornerback from LSU. He was one of our higher prospects that I really loved to see join the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously had a great combine. But, really, there's some decent cornerbacks here that we interviewed. A.J. Green from Oklahoma State, Bryce Hall, Virginia, Reggie Robinson II from Tulsa, A.J. Terrell from Clemson, that's a great name, Trayvon Diggs, Alabama, another great name, Jalen Johnson from Utah, and Jeff Gladney from TCU. Chris, out of those names, which one should really be in our radar?
Oh man, there's so many. I've been hearing a lot of chatter about the Gladney kid.
Oh, TCU, Jeff Gladney.
Yeah, and I believe there was another corner in there from LSU. The name is escaping me at the moment. Sorry.
Christian Fulton or another one?
It was another one, not Fulton.
Okay, yep, and then I have him on the list, but that doesn't mean that it did not happen.
Yeah, because typically what ends up happening is they'll have informal conversations with players, and those aren't reported all the time. Right.
Okay, so basically what... and there's so many players, and there are a lot of high-profile players, so it's really going to be hard to break this down. Maybe we shouldn't even go there until this week is in the books. We might hold off on this, but we'll just put it this way: in the combine, the Kansas City Chiefs really have reached out to a lot of high-end talent on the defensive side of the ball, and I know that we had talked to some prospects, some wide receiver prospects on the offensive side. And even touch base on some O-linemen. So Chris, as far as we'll just stick with excitement. Let's go with this being excitement as far as the draft, who we have talked to and reached out to, the formal and informal interviews. Where do you sit with this? Because like we have mentioned, we're heavy on Brett-Veach, but the guys that you're seeing us talk to, do you feel like that they will be able to fill the holes that we need them to, in this upcoming season?
Absolutely. Looking at the, I've got the wide receiver list that we talked to pulled up right now, and just looking through these names and these players, there's really only one quote-unquote top talent on this list that I could see us taking in the second round. All the rest of these guys are potentially third round or later players.
Right.
And that signals to me that we're probably going to end up looking at linebacker, cornerback in the first two picks. And we could see, potentially second round, if he's there, taking a guy like Justin Jefferson, who would be a tremendous slot receiver for us as he continues to develop. He's a guy that could really add to our offense and would fit right in. Another guy that you and I have been talking a lot about, and he'll be available a little bit later in the draft, wide receiver, tight end combo player from Notre Dame, Chase Claypool.
Yes.
Keep that name in mind, you guys, because he's 6'4", extremely fast, broad-shouldered. This guy is going to be a red zone beast if we end up drafting him.
We could nab him up in the fourth round.
Absolutely, and with as fast as he runs for his size, I mean, he's going to be a Travis Kelce at wide receiver. It's going to be incredible.
I think, and I'm with you on that one. I'm with you everything that you've said so far. I mean that. Our order so far as drafting, it's right on, Chris. So keep it going. Let's hear some more.
We've talked to 3 tight ends. None of these guys are really jumping out at me, at least right now. There's another tight end that is very under the radar, and I don't want to throw his name out there in case any scouts are paying attention to us. But he's another guy who I could see us taking in the 5th round completely out of the blue, but then really surprising everybody in the games next year with just how athletic he is. But then we also have to take into consideration who we already have on our roster this year, and John Lovett. He's a tight end fullback combo player,
right,
who we could end up utilizing at the tight end position.
Right.
And he could be, I mean, we might not even need a tight end going into this year.
This is true.
So it's really just a question of doing our due diligence at tight end and just looking at these players and saying, okay, are these guys that we really have to take a look at, or are we just comparing them to what we already have on our roster and okay, we're good?
I personally think if we're looking at our roster as a whole, or the Chiefs, if we are looking at the Chiefs roster as a whole, that it would be smart for the Chiefs to go after a flex player like you and I had mentioned, could possibly fill 2 holes in one shot, and be a home run hitter, because you get anybody in the Chiefs offense that's a utility player, right at this very moment, it's going to be a home run threat every time. So it's nice that the Chiefs can be picky filling the holes in the depth chart, because if it's done right, it's just going to make the offense even more dangerous. And that's the great thing about where the Chiefs are and their offensive roster as well, is right now it's just plug and play. So if the Chiefs, make a pick and we miss, it's not even a big deal right now, So why not go after our guy? Our track record is there, and the Chiefs are just one piece away on the offensive side from really just nobody can stop them now, but it's just going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'd say 2 pieces on offense.
That are O-linemen?
interior lineman and I don't call him necessarily a scat back, but a pass-catching running back.
Yes.
Not that Damian Williams wasn't that guy for us, but if we could get and this isn't saying that he won't work out, but if Darwin Thompson, quote, isn't the guy, if we could bring somebody in who could be a three-down back, who could also catch the ball out of the backfield, and really take our offense to the next level.
Right.
Well, I mean, that would be the piece that I think, or that and then the interior lineman. Those two pieces, I think, are the ones that we need to really solidify our offense as one of, if not the greatest, offenses in history.
And it's coming, Kansas City, and that's the thing, is our team is getting better. We are not regressing. No matter what the free agency list looks like right now for the Kansas City Chiefs, at the end of the day, the Chiefs will be a better team. So, Chris, look, there's a lot of what-ifs on the board right now, and we've covered all of them. This week is going to be a busy week. I don't see us even be able to get into any more depth than we already have, just because everything's up in the air. I mean, every single thing right now, any thought that we have about the Chiefs is up in the air because, well, there's nothing going on. The league hasn't started and everybody's sitting on their hands. So, is there anything that you want to add today?
Just go Chiefs.
Yes. Hey, go Chiefs. Let's get this done. Let's get this new season started. Chris, thank you for being on. Kansas City will probably pick up the podcast and get back at it here a little more than we have. We needed a break, but we know the season is getting ready to start, so expect more podcasts. Go check out our website, kingdim-radio.com. Check out our blogs. We've been writing a lot of blogs lately. Also, go to our Facebook page. Leave us a review. Kansas City. Come on now. And check us out on Twitter, too. Kingdom Chris. Chris has got himself a Twitter now, Kingdom Chris. Or you can find me, Kingdom Radio host Richard Smith. You type all that into Twitter. I will come up. So find us on all these platforms. Follow us. We always got some great content. Leave it to us. Leave it to Kingdom Radio to have the best content in Chiefs Kingdom. One more thing, Chiefs Kingdom. I do want to say this. Amidst the coronavirus, obviously all sports have been delayed and shut down. Schools are being shut down. Chris himself is a middle school teacher and has the next 2 to 3 weeks off. Not exactly what he said, but Chiefs Kingdom, take precaution. Do what you need to do to protect your family, your friends, yourself. It's time for us to stop acting reckless about this. It is at our front door. And I don't know about you, but I don't like getting sick. I don't care what everybody says. Oh, it's like the flu. More people die from the flu. I don't even want the flu. You think I want this? I know Chris doesn't want it. So everybody just, come on now. Let's take precautions. It's obviously getting pretty deep. Me and Chris were talking before the show. I mean, there's no toilet paper anywhere in the world right now. I mean, the meat section is all sold out. I mean, it's just getting crazy out here. So take precautions, stay away from people, isolate yourself however you can. And by all means, stay away from Patrick-Mahomes, Kansas City. I don't want to hear anything about Patrick-Mahomes and the coronavirus. We're not going there. You leave the kid alone. So, Chris, man, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And Kansas City, we'll speak with you probably later this week. Like I said, quarantine yourself, isolate yourself, stay clean. Let's get through this, and let's get back to the football season. This is Kingdom Radio. I'm your host, Richard Smith. Have a great day, Kansas City. From the Kansas City Sports Update Studios, welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Chris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, CastBox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom.